Hey everyone, what's going on? Nexius here, bringing you guys a quick PvP talents guide. I've had quite a few questions from you guys recently on my videos, and I realized I haven't updated my talent guide in quite a while. Some things have changed since my last guide. Now, if you are interested in other Windwalker guides, I will have at the end of the video a playlist and other videos I recommend you check out, whether that's PvE talents, certain abilities like Touch of Karma and Transcendence, how to use them properly. So all of these different kinds of guides, I will have some at the end of the video that you can check out after this one. But today we are going to be covering specifically the talents you want to go for PvP. So what you guys are seeing here is generally what I like to run these days. I will go very in-depth and specific on when you want to switch out of something and why you want to run something or never run anything. So I will give you guys the general quick setup, and then we'll get right into the meat and potatoes of the actual build for those of you that not only want to know what to run, but you want to actually learn the class. So this is basically what I like to run personally. Eye of the Tiger or Chi Wave really, Tiger's Lust, Energizing Elixir, Leg Sweep, Healing Elixir, Hit Combo, and Dragon Punch. Now when it comes to the honor talents, I run Gladiator's Medallion, Reinforced Armor, Fast Feet, Fortifying Brew, Disabling Reach, and Heavy-Handed Strikes. So this is what I run basically as my default build, and then I will change it up depending on what I'm doing. If I'm queuing 2v2, rated battlegrounds, random battlegrounds, dueling, there are quite a few things that you can change, and even when you go into something like 3v3 arena, it will depend on what you're playing as. For example, if I'm queuing Windwalker, Death Knight, and Resto Shaman, I might run Ride the Wind to help my Death Knight partner reach targets much easier. If I'm playing with a mage, I might not need to run Ride the Wind, I can run something else like Disabling Reach. So there's a lot of different options you can run depending on what you're facing and what you're running yourself. So that's the general setup. Now let's get into each specific talent and when I switch out in particular scenarios. So with the first talent tier here, you can really go whatever you want. This is one of the most common questions I have. Some of you will ask me, why don't I run Chi Wave? When do I run Chi Burst if I ever do? The first tier, you can really run whatever you want. Like, they're so different, or not different, they're so similar in damage output and in terms of like their usefulness that you can really run whatever you want here. Now, I personally run Eye of the Tiger because when I play with a mage, which has been recently, first of all, Chi Wave will occasionally sometimes bounce off yourself or your target and hit somebody in crowd control. So if we go over here real quick, Paralysis, you can see here that when you throw this on, say, a healer, right, you want the healer to stop healing your target so you can kill them or force some kind of cooldown like shield wall or something like that. So the whole purpose of Chi Wave is to give you extra damage, just like the other two. But sometimes Chi Wave will actually bounce to that healer and break your paralysis. Now, if you are playing with a mage, it's basically the similar way of saying polymorph as well. So polymorph is very similar to paralysis in the sense that it can break on damage. So if your mage lands a polymorph on the healer, you stun your target, and then you go into Chi Wave, and the Chi Wave goes and hits the polymorph on the healer, you just totally messed up your crowd control. So that's one of the biggest reasons why I don't always run Chi Wave. I do usually run it. I've only recently tried out other talents, so recently I've been sticking to Eye of the Tiger, but really you can go whatever you want. The only time I run Eye of the Tiger over Chi Wave is if I'm playing with a mage to stop that CC break in general. If I run Serenity in certain cases, same thing with mage, I like to run Serenity over Dragon Punch. I like to run Chi Wave with Serenity, unless of course it depends on what we're playing. So if it's 2v2, I still won't run it, even if I do run Serenity for that purpose of not breaking CC. So overall, main point here is you can pick whatever you like here. Chi Burst, I don't usually run. It just doesn't do as much damage as, you know, the other two. So, like, it's similar, but the thing is, it's got a long cooldown, right? It's 30 seconds. It can help for some burst damage, but overall, I just prefer the consistent small amount of damage over the entire duration of the game with Chi Wave and Eye of the Tiger. I just feel like Chi Burst, to me, I just don't bother using it. I don't like it. I did enjoy it a lot in Warlords of Draenor. Unfortunately, it just doesn't have the same impact of burst damage. So because of that, I just prefer to run something simple. As I mentioned, Chi Wave, it's up more often. Double the time, 15 seconds versus 30. But really, like I said, you can run any of the three you want, whatever you prefer. For the second talent here, I pretty much always run Tiger's Lust. Every time I make a talent video like this one, I always explain how important this talent is. It's just so good. Not only can you use it on yourself, but you can use it on your teammates as well. If there's a Death Knight on the enemy team, for example, he might grip in your healer beside you, and both of you get rooted, and then he does a lot of pressure to both of you. What you can do is you can Tiger's Lust your healer, they'll get away really quickly, and then you can roll away, Serpent Kick, Transcendence. There are so many ways that you can help your teammates. If the Death Knight or say a Ret Pally or whatever is chasing your healer, trying to kill them, what you can do is Tiger's Lust them to help them get away. That will give them some breathing room. It's a form of peeling. In case you guys don't know what peeling is, it's stopping the enemy from pressuring your teammates, and the way you do that is through crowd control like Paralysis, slowing down with Disable, which is a talent like this where you get the extra range on it, makes it easier to slow them down, root them, stun them, and just using Tiger's Lust to get them away from any kind of melee damage is just an example of peeling. So I have used it recently as yesterday in arenas on my teammates. It's really valuable. The other two talents just don't match up. Reduced cooldown on roll, an extra charge, and then here you replace roll with a longer distance roll, and it also gives you movement speed, which is usually cancelled out by some kind of slow anyway. Since every class basically has a slow effect, that movement bonus actually gets replaced. The only time I really go Chi Torpedo is if I'm going to flag carry in, say, Warcraft Gulch or Twin Peaks, just to give me that extra distance across the map to cap it faster or to get to healers faster. Overall, long distance like Warcraft Gulch and Twin Peaks. If I'm flag carrying, I will run Chi Torpedo, but otherwise, I just run Tiger's Lust in every other situation. The difference between using it on yourself while also knowing when to use it on your partners is an extra layer of skill cap on this class, and that's what makes it so great. For the third tier, this one comes down to something very simple. Two things. First of all, which one gives you more energy and more chi over time? And is there any other aspect of these talents that will actually give you an extra benefit? So for example, if you need energy and chi right this minute for burst damage, Energizing Elixir is vastly superior. So I'll tell you guys why this one is the best. So first of all, we have Ascension here, which just gives you extra energy regeneration. 10% just isn't enough to actually make it better than the other two, in my opinion. And then we have Power Strikes, where every 15 seconds your Tiger Palm generates 1 additional chi. So what is that, 4 chi over 1 minute? I don't know how much chi we get over 1 minute with Ascension, but I'll just tell you, I just know it's not good. It's not very good. I haven't actually tested it in a long time. All I know is it's just not as good as the other talent, which is Energizing Elixir. So as I mentioned here, 4 chi every minute, whereas Energizing Elixir will not only give you full chi, which is 5, but it will also give you full energy as well if you are lacking in that department. Now, not only does it give you more chi per minute, but it also gives you more energy per minute than the other two. And on top of that, you can use this on demand. So for example here, if you're running Dragon Punch, which most cases you aren't running Serenity. So Serenity removes the chi cost on your abilities, so it's easier to burst in a small window since everything is free. You don't have to spend time Tiger Palming, but Dragon Punch is technically better now at this point in 7.3.5. So your abilities will cost chi during your Storm, Earth, and Fire burst, as you can see here. So if you are familiar with Storm, Earth, and Fire, it's just like any other cooldown, right? You use it, you generate chi, you burst damage with it. So the reason why Energizing Elixir is really good for this is because when you leg sweep a target, you stun them. You want that chi right away to strike the Windlord, Rising Sun Kick, Fist of Fury. It's a lot of chi. So when you're in your burst window, which is very important as a Windwalker, having that on-demand 5 chi right away is what makes this so much better than the other two talents, on top of the fact that it gives you full chi and energy compared to the other two. For the 60 tier, it's pretty much the same thing. Leg sweep, there's no reason ever to switch out unless you're playing with like a rogue, which naturally you shouldn't be playing with a rogue. If you are, you're basically doing it for memes. There's just no reason to play Windwalker rogue or any other class or spec that has a lot of stuns. So a rogue will naturally cheap shot your kill target. So because of that, you don't really need leg sweep, and instead you can go with, say, Ring of Peace. But it's really not that useful at all. For Mistweaver, different story, but for Windwalker, leg sweep hands down is by far the best choice. So because of that, you just always want to run it. In PvP, Ox Statue has no purpose at all as far as I can think of, and Ring of Peace, the only time I can really think so, is flag carrying or raided battlegrounds. If you don't need that leg sweep for killing targets in a team fight, you can use Ring of Peace to knock people off the edges to kill them in, say, Eye of the Storm or any kind of area like that, Lumber Mill at Arathi Basin. But generally, for Windwalkers, 99% of the time, you are choosing leg sweep here. The 5-second stun here is just significant. When it comes to Windwalkers, I cannot emphasize enough about how important burst window setups are with Windwalkers. We have some sustained depending on the target. So if the target has low armor, like cloth targets, so priest, mage, warlock, you can do a lot of sustained damage. But if you're especially facing higher armor targets like shamans, hunters, warriors, paladins, death knights, boomkins, because they have the armor buff from their shapeshift, there's so many different things that kind of like modify Windwalker's damage, and the biggest one is armor. Now, the reason why I bring this up is because we don't have as much sustained damage compared to, say, a Death Knight or a Warrior. So because of that, we have to really make our damage count where it matters. And Leg Sweep is important for that, because what you want to do is you want to, say, Paralysis the healer, and then you want to Leg Sweep your target, burst them down, and then you want to Fist of Fury stun them afterwards. And that's basically how Windwalkers naturally work. You don't just sit there and press 1, 2, 3 the entire time. You don't have enough damage to really do that. I mean, yeah, you sit there and say 3v3 and you'll do that, but what I'm saying is, like, it's not as impactful just doing that without CC. So you have to really rely on your CC to land kills, and Leg Sweep is part of that CC toolkit. For the 75 tier here, I run Healing Elixir 99.9% of the time. Two reasons why. First of all, it gives you more healing compared to the other two talents, but the other reason too is that it actually automatically triggers when you are stunned. So if you, say, are at 50% HP, Rogue Mage, Priest is your enemy team in 3v3, and the Rogue stuns you, and then the Mage CCs your healer, well, you're probably going to die in the stun, right? But Healing Elixir actually triggers when you drop below 35%, even when you are stunned. So the difference between 15 or 30% health, if you have the two charges, when you're stunned, that can actually be the difference between you getting out of that stun and then using Transcendence or Touch of Karma, or your healer can heal you. So it's huge when it comes to stuff like that. Rarely I will go Diffuse Magic, usually against Affliction Warlocks if I want to try a very reckless one-shot kill. I have a Touch of Karma guide that explains this Touch of Karma Diffuse Magic combo. I recommend that Touch of Karma guide if you want to see what I'm talking about. But Affliction Warlocks, I rarely even go this against it, only really in 2v2 and if they don't expect the one-shot combo. Now, Dampen Harm, I just don't think it's worth going. 2-minute cooldown's very long, and just compared to Healing Elixir, it's not as useful. You can't use it while stunned, and Healing Elixir is just really great because when you get out of a stun, you have so many ways to get away. You have Serpent Kick with your mobility, rolls, Tiger's Lust. You have Paralysis, you got your stuns to peel. If you can't use that, you have your Transcendence to get away. You have your Touch of Karma, you have your Fortifying Brew. What we don't have is something that protects us while we are stunned, and that's where Healing Elixir comes in. So if we're stunned, we have 2 Healing Elixirs, or at least hopefully 1, and then outside of stuns, we have so many other escapes. So Windwalkers are so hard to kill unless they're in a stun, and we resist that a little bit by Healing Elixir. So just had to emphasize on why I pick Healing Elixir. It seems obvious, but that's my thought process behind it. I want to explain every ability to you guys, and that will help you understand why some of these talents are really natural picks. For the 90 tier, we have Hit Combo. This is similar to the first tier. You can really go whatever you like here. Personally, I never switch out of Hit Combo. I just don't want to break CC with Zwen or Rushing Jade Wind. 6%. I think it's 1% in PvP still, so 6% total damage if you keep the stacks up. It's just increased sustained damage at all times, so it's really nothing different. It's just a simple damage increase. Rushing Jadewind just doesn't do a lot, similar to Miss Pandaria, to where it's worth using. It also does cost Chi. On top of that, Zwen, very long cooldown, and his burst damage used to be really good, but now it's kind of okay to the point where you don't really have to run him. A couple seasons ago, we would actually run this all the time. He had so much burst damage, but they nerfed him by like 45% or something like that. So now he's not as good anymore, and his cooldown's very long. So why would you want to sacrifice sustained damage for a little bit more burst damage when you can just have increased damage across the board? I just prefer Hit Combo personally. but my main point here is that if you like Zwen a lot, or you like Rushing Jadewind, you want to give yourself that Miss of Pandaria feel, you can go with the other two talents, but technically hit combo is a little bit better, but all three of them are pretty much equal. For the final tier, we don't even look at Chi Orbit. It's getting removed in Battle for Azeroth. I'm glad about that. I hate this talent. It looks ugly. I just don't like it, period. But even if I did like it, it's not that great. It's actually terrible. I only recommend Dragon Punch and sometimes Serenity. Serenity used to be the go-to, but they actually nerfed it in PvP to where it's 18% damage, and you don't get Dragon Punch either, and you can easily CC it as well. So basically, you want to go Dragon Punch all the time. It's extra sustain damage, it's extra cleave pressure if you're facing, say, double melee. Storm, Earth, and Fire lasts twice as long as Serenity. There's just so much more output damage with Dragon Punch / Storm, Earth, and Fire. The only time I really play Serenity is a couple of reasons. The first one is sometimes I'll play it with a mage, so I don't have extra cleave to break CC like Dragon Punch. Serenity is easier to front load burst damage, so for example, it lasts 8 seconds and it allows you to get a lot of abilities off in a short period of time. So if you have a very short window of burst damage that's important, Serenity can be better for that. Even though Dragon Punch does give you more damage, it is over 15 seconds instead of 8. So I like to run Serenity specifically with a mage, because when we get that poly or short paralysis, I can do a little bit of burst damage quickly, maybe force something with the mage, and then after that we go back to normal. However, technically Dragon Punch is best. But yeah, I really like Serenity personally. I love the playstyle. Unfortunately, it's just not as good as Dragon Punch and Storm, Earth, and Fire. So I'm kind of forced into Dragon Punch here. I mean, simply put, it just does more damage. There's really no other reason to play Serenity. Sometimes I'll play it if there's a reason, but for the most part, Dragon Punch, there's no reason to pick Serenity over Dragon Punch at this point. For the honor talents, really just Trinket no matter what race you are. It used to be Relentless if you were Orc. Some cases adaptation, but really damage is so high at this point of the expansion that you definitely need a Trinket. Even if you're Orc, I would recommend Trinket. I just don't see it being worth running Orc Relentless. I've seen Orc Relentless Shamans die in a stun. I don't think it would be any different with a Windwalker Monk. Maybe if you were, say, facing a Rogue and you were like Orc, Windwalker, I mean, you could try it, but honestly, I just see everyone playing Trinket these days, especially if you're not an Orc. I just think it's better. And if you're human, which a lot of players seem to be human these days as well, at least on Alliance side, having 2 Trinkets, your racial as well as the medallion, is just really great. For the second tier, Reinforced Armor, 10% extra health. The reason why this is way better than the other two, first of all, staying above 80% health is pretty tough. I mean, yeah, you can get topped off by your healer, but it's really not hard to break hardiness below 80%, especially as a Windwalker. Sparring, a lot of classes these days, yes, some have physical attacks like Windwalker and Warrior, but for the most part, a lot of melee these days actually have elemental damage. Like Sub-Rogue has a lot of shadow damage, Assassination has a lot of poison damage. So because of that, there aren't as many physical attacks, but on top of that, Reinforced Armor is so much better for a couple of reasons, and I'll tell you guys why. So the first one is, the more health you have, the harder it is to kill you in a single stun, because they have to do more damage. Now, that's one reason. The other reason is the way the Windwalker toolkit is, a lot of it is based off health percentage. So the more health you get, the more bonuses you get out of those abilities. So for example here, talents. Healing Elixir will heal us for 15% of our health. So if we have more health, we will heal ourselves a lot more through Healing Elixir. Other abilities include Touch of Karma, which will absorb damage equal to 50% of our maximum health. So again, the more health we have, the more it will absorb. And then, we have other abilities as well that also are percentage based. So right here we have Touch of Death, same thing. The target will take damage equal to 50% of our health, reduced against players, but it's still a percentage of our health. So the more health we have, the more damage we get from certain abilities, the more healing we get, absorption. You guys see my point, right? Oh yeah, one more. Over here, Healing Winds. Whenever we Transcendence Transfer, it will heal us for a 25% maximum health bonus over 6 seconds. So again, more health we have, the more we receive. So very good talent, so much synergy with our abilities that it's just by far the best choice. Now for the third tier, we have Yulon's Gift. Eminence, and Fast Feet. So I run Fast Feet baseline because there are a lot of slows in the game, so you want to make sure you're sticking to targets, whether it's an Arcane Mage, Frost Mage, anything really, or if you're kiting, you want to get rid of those slows quickly without using Tiger's Lust, unless they don't have any roots, but generally Fast Feet is the best choice. Sometimes I will switch to Eminence, because the reduced cooldown on Transcendence will not only give me more healing, but it will also allow me to escape enemy damage a lot more often. So for example, as you guys might know, Destruction Warlocks, right? They can't really chase you down. They have to sit in the middle of the map, and if you're in their sight, they do a lot of damage to you. So one of the things I like to do is I like to go out there, do some damage, and then when I'm just about to see that they're going to set me up for some big damage, I immediately Transcendence away, or if they CC my healer, I can Transcendence away behind a pillar. They can't do damage to me, so now my healer is sitting a CC for no reason. They're going to get on DR, so I'm safe to go back out. They can free cast heal me. So Eminence just allows us to get away much more often and stay alive with healing much more often as well. So there are some cases where this is worth going. One of the biggest times I use this is if I'm queuing with a mage in 2v2. So Windwalker mage 2v2, we don't have a healer. So one of my biggest ways of staying alive is through Eminence. So just an important aspect there to know as well. Yulon's Gift used to be the best choice because whenever you would roll or Serpent Kick, it would take away the slow effects on you. So if you were chasing down a Frost Mage or an Arcane Mage and they would slow you down, all you had to do was roll and the slow effect would be gone. But they took that out because it was too powerful, and honestly I agree with that. I wish they would actually redesign this because Serpent Kick dispelling it really doesn't do much. So that's kind of unfortunate that this talent just sucks now, but I mean the previous talent was way too good, so... not good at all, just Eminence or Fast Feet. I run Fast Feet as baseline. For the 4th tier here, Effuse is terrible, so don't even look at Control the Miss. It's just bad. It's awful. Every 10 seconds, Effuse can be cast instantly. It doesn't make it free, so you will be energy starved a lot. On top of that, it only heals for like 89,000. 89,000 for a 6 million health pool, that's like 60 Effuses to heal to full. That's a lot, so that tells you a lot on how terrible Effuse pretty much is. It's about 1% per cast, so every 10 seconds you spend 30 energy for a 1% heal, whereas you can get Fortifying Brew or even Zen Moment. Zen Moment, it has a very, very short cooldown, but it does cost 3 chi, and every time you use different abilities, the effect is reduced by a lot, by 5%. So you can get rid of this very, very quickly, and that's what makes it terrible in addition to its chi cost. It is a very short cooldown, it can keep you alive, but the reason why Fortifying Brew is the best is not only does it do the same thing, 20% reduction, but what it also has is that it doesn't have a chi cost either, and because it doesn't have a drawback, for example, whenever you attack, it reduces the effect. This is permanent, right? So when you attack, it doesn't reduce the effect. So this can allow you to stay offensive and out in the fight instead of having to run away and stop fighting with Zen Moment. So that's what makes Fortifying Brew the better talent choice out of Zen Moment. It's really that main purpose. It allows you to stay offensive. There's no drawbacks, no chi cost. It does have double the cooldown though. I haven't found a moment to really use Zen Moment. Interesting pun there, but unintended. Control the Mist, don't even look at it. This tier here, Tiger Style can be useful. It allows you to turn around with your Flying Serpent Kick. So if you're saying 2v2 or dueling, you want to Serpent Kick and turn behind a wall or a pillar, heal yourself up so they can't attack you, grip you, cast Frostbolts. It can be useful in that way, but most cases you will have Transcendence for that exact reason. So I don't see too much use out of this. It's useful in some cases, but for the most part, I either run the extra range on my slow, so I can keep that target slowed if they're trying to get away. For example, if I'm facing a Mistweaver in 2v2, they have Yulon's Gift, and their Yulon's Gift actually has roll on it. So every time they roll Chi Torpedo or Serpent Kick, it takes away my slow. And the way Disable works, it's really buggy. The hitbox is so small that sometimes you'll be right on top of them and it won't even use Disable. So having the range talent actually fixes that issue that it has, and it also just makes it easier to peel targets for your healer, peel targets for your teammates, keep them slowed, keep them rooted, and as I mentioned, the hitbox issue as well. Ride the Wind, this can be useful as well if you know how to use it, say across the arena, so your healers can get away, your mages or partners can get away. If you need to help your Death Knight partner reach a mage or a different target because they're slowed down, because we know how slow Death Knights are, Ride the Wind is really good for that. Otherwise, I usually run Disabling Reach baseline if I'm playing with a Death Knight, and in some other cases where I don't need the range, I can run Ride the Wind for that. And the final tier is a pretty obvious one. This is going to be Heavy-Handed Strikes. This will allow you to stun the target for 4 seconds in addition to anyone else in range. So you can stun multiple targets with this. And this is every 25 seconds because Fist of Fury is right over here. And as I mentioned earlier with Leg Sweep and Paralysis, your crowd control is what makes you pressure the target. Your damage alone is not enough. You're not a Death Knight, you're not an Arms Warrior. You need crowd control to actually pressure targets, and Fist of Fury stun is a big key portion to that. Now, of course, you have 2 other talents here, Tiger Eye Brew and Grapple Weapon. Grapple Weapon you really don't need. First of all, disarming a target with a long 1 minute cooldown, I mean 1 minute is pretty short, but when you consider 4 seconds stun every 25 seconds, you can stun a target 4 times more than you would actually grapple the weapon. So stunning a warrior is way better than actually disarming them. So like there's no reason to pick grapple weapon over a Fist of Fury stun. When it comes to Tiger Eye Brew, this is pure damage. You generate the stacks. It's kind of similar to the old one. Once you use Tiger Eye Brew, it will allow your attacks to become elemental, so you'll ignore armor. So not only will it reduce your damage by 20%, but allow you to ignore armor, it will allow you to go through some abilities like Blessing and Protection. That makes the target immune to physical damage, but your abilities are no longer physical. So if you see a Paladin Blessing and Protection somebody or themselves, you can actually damage through that. You can't damage through Ice Block or Divine Shield, but Blessing of Protection you can. Now, keep in mind that this allows you to ignore armor while also giving you 20% reduced damage, so you will only get a damage bonus through high armored targets such as Boomkins, Paladins, Death Knights, Warriors, anyone with a lot of armor. That's when you want to kind of use this, but honestly in a arena setting, there's no reason to pick it over Heavy-Handed Strikes. Heavy-Handed Strikes will actually allow you to not only stun the target for 4 seconds, preventing casting, using defensives like Shield Wall, Defensive Stance, but it's also good for defensive use as well. As I mentioned, if somebody is chasing down your healer, you can stun them for 4 seconds. So not only does Heavy-Handed Strikes have an offensive use to it for pressure, but it also has a defensive use for your teammates when the enemy is trying to pressure. So it's really important that you run the Fist of Fury stun. So overall, those are the honor talents, those are the regular talents for PvP, those are the reasons why I pick something baseline when I switch out. If you guys have any real questions about the talents, don't be afraid to leave a comment down below. As I mentioned, at the end of this video, I'll have a playlist link to my other Legion Windwalker guides. If you want to learn more about the class, check that out. Thanks as always guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.